some beats, get some beats. Happy New Year to all and each and every one of you lo-fi and comic books and years all around the world. I'm back. Um, I should have made this before the New Year's, but you know how things go. It's the New Year's, right? Maybe a little bit more hectic than Christmas, if you wanna, I don't know, see it like that. But to my surprise, I mean, I think I knew there were gonna be new releases on New Year's, but I wasn't entirely sure. But whatever, there were, and I, I wanted to take the chance to do my favorite of the year, like some reviews, because I don't know anything about news. I mean, I could talk about um Marvel Man. I was saying Marvel Man, Wonder Man, new trailer, but fuck it. I'm just gonna talk about two things before we go to a couple of recommendations for this week. First thing is I was thinking about my favorite comic books of the year. And of course there are like plenty and I don't know. You can argue for many of them. And if you go to like the more how do you say like cultured or like more I don't know. But like people who read the graphic novels and everything, it seems that there has been a lot of really good graphic novels released this year, but I don't do those longer graphic novels. I just do the weeklies. So it's really hard. You can read everything after all. So after considerations, and of course I gotta mention, sorry for my equipment. My traditional equipment is not with me today. This is my replacement equipment. But I felt that I needed to get this off my chest, and I can't lose the practice or for the grind. So I was thinking, and did I say hello? Welcome to another week of comics with me, your friend Carlz. My favorite comic book of the year wasn't just a comic book, but I gotta say my favorite comic thing of the year was the Absolute Universe. I'm just gonna come down and say it. I love Flash, I love Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman. Like I don't wanna say just one of them because all of them were great. And you gotta recognize like the hit, like the editorial foresight they had with the Absolute Universe because it was really great. And what they did and what I want to recognize about it is the tone of it. It seems like a time machine to the 90s or something. To not necessarily darker or more serious. I don't want to say comics or this brand of comics. Now that I've been talking about or mentioning graphic novels, it's not that they aren't serious or intense anymore, but it's not the same vibe. The thing with the Absolute Universe is that they went really dark. They went really dark. Like there's no fun, lighthearted, like any one of them. Which book of the Absolute Universe is like chill and lighthearted? None of them. And that had to be an editorial choice, like a big editorial choice. Let's make this really intense and really dark. And that is the key, dark and intense. And I know it sounds like classic emo shit that we've all done before, especially in comic books. But it's true. I mean, can you find any light-heartedness or on any like light topics in any of the absolute titles? None whatsoever. None whatsoever. And the fact that they are all alike created this context of complete sort of how can I say like immersion. That is the word, immersion. I definitely felt immersed into the absolute universe, into its vibe, into its um can you say greediness, you know? And it grew up on me. As I mentioned before, I wasn't completely sure that this absolute universe was going to be like a long term thing. I thought it was gonna be a shorter thing, but it kept growing up and it kept growing up, and the titles kept getting good. It just kept growing on me. And I talked about Absolute Batman a couple of weeks ago. I talked about Absolute Wonder Woman, Manhunter. I think I talked about all of them. So I gotta say, my comic book thing of 2025, which it's already behind us, was the Absolute Universe, like hands down. It was so fun. It was so intense. The writing was amazing. The art was incredible. The even the criticism, like society's criticism, the philosophies behind it, in good. It was just amazing. I think my close second will be Wonder Woman by Tom King. I also mentioned it before, but it has something, the way he does things, when you've read so many comics, you start like feeling like these trends. Tom King does this thing so often when he picks the page and makes like 20 vignettes out of them and start picking up like the smaller sort of reactions. But what I love the most about Tom King's current run in Wonder Woman was how Wonder Woman would just act. Like she wouldn't, not it's not talking, it's not giving reasons, but he would just act. In having the capacity, the ability to show just action, but with so much content in a medium like comics is nothing but genius. This ain't movies or like this is just a page, and he crams so much into it. This is, to me, was also another Tom King year with Helen of Windhorn, Wonder Woman, and of course the upcoming Supergirl, which it's easy to compare Supergirl, Women of Tomorrow with Wonder Woman. They have same style because the same author, but they do that same thing, where these characters don't need to talk; they just need to act, and that shit is awesome. And my close third, um, I was in between Ultimate Spider-Man and Fantastic Four by Ryan North. And even though Ultimate Spider-Man was way more intense, it was way more praise. And I've said it before, that sort of concentrated Spider-Man essentials, if you want to call it, was great. And Hickman did an amazing job. I think I gotta go with Fantastic Four. Uh, I remember criticizing the current run of Fantastic Four once and saying that it was strange that it was so out there, like so far away from the main happenings of the Marvel universe, and how I've always seen the Fantastic Four as this beacon of the weird and the sci-fi in the Marvel universe. Like everything important must go through them. I resented that for a bit, but looking back at the whole run and to the past year, I think it has been great. It's like I felt excited and elated every time I saw another issue of the Fantastic Four run, knowing that it was just a small tiny adventure or maybe a couple of issues of an adventure. They have just so much charisma and they sort of like represent the the living, quote unquote, the living in a fantastic setting of comics. It would be instantly teleported to their house, to whatever they were doing. So even though the one world of Doom came, and of course they were part of it, they weren't like an essential part of it, and that was great. So only for comfort reasons, I'm picking Ryan North's run of Fantastic Four still ongoing. I gotta like, it just showed me what I like and love the most about the Fantastic Four. As I said, you just see a new issue, you sit down to read it, and you're like immediately transported to this world of fantasy and science fiction. And Fantastic Four is basically that. Now I have pending the next week, perhaps if I manage to get my hands onto the end of the Age of Revelation, but I have plenty of shit to say about that too. So I might do some review about it in the future. But yeah, those are my favorite comic books of 2025. The Absolute Universe, uh, what is it? The Absolute Universe, Wonder Woman, and Fantastic Four. Those are my favorite comic things of 2025. Uh, Um, I'm pretty sure. Nah, nah, I'm not gonna say anything about um the Age of Revelation yet. But I'm just gonna say in like general terms that I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it a lot. But like doing like a big overview of comic books during 2025, I felt like more immersed than ever. Especially because I've been playing a lot of rivals, and I don't want to say just play rivals and everything, but I think it also was a good year for comic book based movies. Superman was awesome, and I don't know. I mean, at the beginning of 2025, I was a little bit skeptic about the whole state of comic bookness thing, if you want to call it like that. I felt a little bit burnout, especially in the visual side or like the cinema series side of it. A little bit burnout, but it's not as cyclical as it happens with other things. Like to me, for example, with wrestling. Wrestling is a cyclical thing to me. Like you get into it, you see it for a couple of months, and then you realize it's always going to be the same, and then you move on. And sometimes that happens as well with other medium, like comics or like movies. But there's a spice and like a potential on it. Like from Marvel, there were so many entertaining things and good twists. The Mortal Thor, Infernal Hulk was great. Of course, everything they did with the Ultimate Universe, which I might give a quick review next time. There's a bunch of things to like. So I basically comic books never lose you. There's always something to read. Even though people might say it's a dying medium, but like those people are just jerks. But anyways, let's check out just a couple of titles released this week in our very handy dandy. Of course, the first one, as I said, if I manage to get my hands on it, I'll review the whole event next week. But as a preview, yeah, no, like as spoiler, no. How do you say when you show something? Yeah, it's just a preview, right? As a preview, I knew I knew they were gonna use this as a platform to like insert so many stories for the upcoming uh X-Men reboot, relaunch, eras. I think they call them eras now, right? For the upcoming X-Men era. And the one from Iron versus Frost, no. Frost Iron. The one with Iron Man and Emma Frost. The one they did there was explicit as hell. But I also enjoy what they did with Rogue and Gambit in Exceptional X-Men. There's a lot of just overall just vibes. And I think that that is what we want from here, from the end of the Age of Revelation. This is what we want from here. There's a lot of emotional vibes more than arguments or plot points for the upcoming X-Men era. What we're gonna get out of this Age of Revelation is like emotional vibes. You can see Gambit, Storm, you can see Beast getting some of this shit back because it's gonna come back. As I said, the explicit one was Iron Frost. That one was explicit. Like they didn't even make it poetic. Let's just send a message to the past about what happened in the future. You know, even though we already know what Invincible Iron Man is gonna be next March, so I don't know how well interconnected it's gonna be. But like, hey, you gotta know how it ends. Overall, it's been quite a great event in general, so you gotta know the ending, right? How would you skip the ending? Next. I've also talked about Rick Remender's Escape, and what I wanted to mention in this new release was something that happened to me in the previous issue. I don't want to spoil it, but you know, I got mysteriously overly critical about it. I remember in this year I saw the movie, is it called Blitz? The one with Saoirse Ronan about the bombings of London during World War II. And you know how these war stories they sort of blend in together at some point. If you have seen or read too many of them, that's just how it goes. You know, there's only so much you can invent, like enemies becoming friends, or like finding common ground, or you know, portrayals of evil and good. There's only so much you can get. But here's the thing: I mentioned once how the whole anthropo well, making animals behave like humans, anthropomorphization maybe. I mentioned before how that whole practice it's strange. It's like a joker card. You can use it and bring some fresh elements to a story, or maybe imply some extra elements. But the previous issue Escape gave me that sort of revelation. Speaking of age of revelation, like what is this animal setting? What does it bring to this war inspired story? I'm not gonna say what it is. I don't wanna like drive anyone's thought about it. But there is something in both Escape and one of the breakout comics of 2025. What we the one with the serial killer bear. There's something in that process that oops, it just went. There's something in that process that is just so interesting, and the flexibility of it is just incredible. Man, I forgot this lo-fi has a weird muted part in between. There we go. But anyways, and there's enough creativity there to make any story fresh. So even if you don't like war stories, Escape is still fun. Next, this to me has this- I've mentioned it before. I play a lot of Rivals, and Scarlet Witch is probably most hated character to me in that game. And well, I've never been a Scarlet Witch character outside the game or in general. But I said this when I talk about the new Weekend series. I feel like they're picking up some weird thing in the magic side of Marvel, making Scarlet Witch Sorcerer Supreme, and the way they did it is like she just came and picked up like the what's the called the Eye of Agamotto and the Cloak of Deception or whatever. She just came and picked them up, and now I'm the Sorcerer Supreme. But there's an interesting question there. Back in the in during Wanda's own Witches Road, where she discovered the origins of the Scarlet Witch, the title of the Scarlet Witch, when she learned that it just is a legacy and it's like a role inside of the magic universe of the Marvel universe. When she discovered all of that on her own sort of volition, of course the question that arose was like, so what is the real hierarchy of magic in the Marvel universe? You know, how can there be a so powerful Scarlet Witch and a Sorcerer Supreme? I guess what I'm trying to say is like the most interesting parts of this whole fair of the magic thing is that it's gonna be informative at the very least. It's something that in comics and in Marvel in particular is something that is never settled in stone. And it sort of shows you how some people get stuck with just one image of either a character, of an element of a character. You know, when someone goes like, "Oh, Gambit has always been like this," or like, "Oh, Iron Man has always been like this." But there's a complexity, not only in the characters, but in the lore and in the universes they inhabited inside of the universe. So you have the big Marvel universe, and inside of it, you have this micro, but it's big enough, like macro, but like you have another universe, which is the side of magic inside of the Marvel universe. So I've been really interested to see how they deal between Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange of Asgard. Well, now it's just Doctor Strange, and we can Witch's Roll. I just want to know how it goes, especially like if we completely forgotten about Runaways, where Nico Minoru's rediscovering her magic role. It's funny because it seems like in DC is like, even though it's as ethereal as magic goes, in DC it seems like just more standard, you know. You have John Constantine doing some shit, and like Satana is always so powerful, whatever. But in Marvel, it's free for all. So at least from a curiosity sense, Sorcerer Supreme, you gotta pick it up. I'm surprised they didn't call it like Scarlet Witch Sorcerer Supreme. Oh, and Clea is still around, so there's a bunch of magic shit going in Marvel. It's worth checking out. Next. This is the last issue of this image series called the Tinkan Society. I don't know if I've mentioned it before. Why? Well, the Tinkan Society, it's about a group of friends that one of them became a big inventor. He was a triple. And is that politically correct? So he was a cripple, but he was a genius. So he just created this like exosuit. But not only that, but like he became a superhero, a millionaire, whatever. The point is, like the miniseries begin with this sort of, well, now that there is a current, with this Stranger Things kind of vibe of a group of friends just surviving their teens before doing a big time jump into them being adults. And I can't spoil anything, but let's say you take a group of kids, you take their friendships, and you put it through different stages of time. And in between that, you put some fantastic elements related to superheroing, um, power struggles, and mysteries, because it's a thriller as well. This is a perfect moment to recommend this because it's ending, so it's gonna be a short trade if people want to check it out. But I don't know, I just loved it. I mentioned before that I'm a sucker for family dynamics. I'm not that much of a sucker about friendship dynamics, but they are as fun as family dynamics when they imply a little bit of like extra spice. In the case of the Tinkan Society, are the thriller aspects of it and the representation aspects of it. You know, they do a lot of commentary on disability and you know the irony of disability with power. There's a lot of to sort of, how can you say, what is the expression, to unpack. There's a lot to unpack in the Tinkan Society, and it's fun, it's fast, it's intense. So I highly recommend it, especially now that it's ending, so you can just go and pick the trade later. You know, chill. Next. Uh, what can I say about this without spoiling what I want to talk about the overall or the ultimate endgame? If I do so in a couple of weeks, what if you're not reading the ultimates by now? I guess not only you missed out on one of the biggest comics of 2025, but you have been missing the closest thing Marvel has right now to the absolute universe. And it's not all because these are like really strong and really close, but they have put the spotlight on these alternate versions of their main universe. It's not just because we all know that the ultimate universe it's has been here longer than the absolute one. But here's the thing with the ultimates and number issue 18, and that's why I'm recommending 19, made me realize is that they did in a really similar way to the absolute universe condense so many elements or interesting elements of these characters. So they aren't just like different versions of them. You know, it's not like just oh this is the same character with just this minimum difference. No, I think they caught it and they are highlighting Wasp in the upcoming issue 19. And I don't want to spoil anything, but her role, not only in the Ultimates, but in the Ultimate Endgame, has become one of the interesting plot lines of the whole book. It's a direct criticism to the whole Ultimate project. I won't say anymore, but like that can give you an oversight of what it actually means, what the Wasp is gonna do. A direct criticism to the whole thing, and that's just fascinating. Not only in sort of like a plot sense, but in an ideal way, or like in like how can you call it? Like criticism of the superheroes themselves. The Ultimates have sort of built into that in a really strange way. It's sort of like a small meta commentary on superheroes. Hasn't been bad at all. And it's almost over. Almost over. Next. Almost over. Almost over. Excuse me. It's no coincidence that the the Ultimate Endgame is starting this week. Um, I think it has enough weight on its own to not needing me or anyone else to recommend it. The Ultimate Universe, or the small revival it had during this year, is definitely one of Marvel's highlights of the year. And now it's ending. I just want to say one thing about it. I don't think every Ultimate hero was as good, or like they were like similarly good to be really prominent for the Ultimate Endgame. Given that the cover features Ultimate Wolverine, oh, he's one of those that I didn't really care much for. And the fact that the maker wasn't as prominent as you would like during the general development of the whole thing feels also weird. But regardless of criticism, the Ultimate Endgame is here. And well, all you really needed was to be invested in one of them. And I think that was the great marketing ploy, editorial plan they had. As I said a couple of weeks before, I wasn't really sure that this was going to end. I didn't know it was going to be like a no, it's not short term, it's like a mid-term long project. So now that it's ending, you get like the big reveal that all you needed was to get invested in one of them to feel the need, the drive to read Endgame. I wonder if they name it Endgame also because of the movies. How many times have they used the word Endgame? I for sure I didn't know the word Endgame until Avengers Endgame. It's not a word that you would use commonly. I don't know if native English speakers use the word endgame often. I should have she didn't know about it before Avengers Endgame. But anyways, these are the sort of books that you don't really need to recommend. They recommend themselves. As I said, all you needed was to be interested in one ultimate book, and you will definitely wanna read the Endgame, because the ones that are that they already close, or they are close to being closed, they all have pointed out towards the end game. Like, you couldn't just read Ultimate Spider-Man and like be satisfied with whatever the end is gonna be, you know? So it was all a big ploy to make you read Ultimate Endgame. Who knows? But whatever. And yeah, that is the first week of 2026 in comic books. I don't have anything to say, anything bad to say about 2025. I had a hell of a good time reading comics in 2025, and I have no doubt I will have a hell of a time during 2026. And I don't really want to do like what I'm the most excited about, because I don't want to read too much into the future. Of course, I checked when they announced big things, and now they just spam, like DC and Marvel, they spam their socials whenever something big is announced, so it's really hard to avoid. But I don't really like looking too much into the future, because I think it makes the current runs and the current stories like be less impactful, you know? Like if you're reading something really intense and then they go like, oh, in September of 2026 they're gonna do this other shit. You go like, okay, so the shit is not that intense, even though you secretly know it's gonna be like that. You see my point? But anyways, have a great 2026. Keep reading comics. Keep being, I don't know, happy about those imaginary worlds we share. Because as I said before, they're pretty much way better than the regular world. See you all next time with more comic books. Read on 2026. We're coming for you. Take care.